Mr. Fox matched the energy that white people give us, that we should shut up and sing, we should shut up and play basketball, we should shut up and box, by saying Chappell Roan should stick to singing. And they were not happy on Facebook. Oh well. Alright, you white motherfuckers, all eyes on me. This is the I Refuse podcast. This is Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast. I am back. It has been not even 24 hours since Chappell Roan. I keep wanting to call her Chappell Roman. I don't know why, but she decided to throw us in a group chat on TikTok to clarify her comments she made in an interview that was released back on the 20th. Whether they did the interview on the 20th or released it. An interview by The Guardian. So, in the TikTok, which in my opinion was fruit salad, came out yesterday saying, actions speak louder than words, than an endorsement. I have encouraged people to use critical thinking skills to learn about what they're voting for, learn about who they're voting for, and ask questions. And it's being completely taken out of context per the usual. Hear from my mouth if you're still wondering. No, I'm not voting for Trump. And yes, I will always question those in power, those making decisions over other people. I will stand up for what's right and what I believe in. It's always at the forefront of my project, and I'm sorry that she fell for the clickbait. So from her interview with The Guardian, she professed to having so many issues with our government in every way because there are so many things that I would want to change about the current state of government. She goes on to claim she doesn't feel pressure to endorse someone. There's problems on both sides. She continued, I encourage people to use your critical thinking skills, use your vote small, vote for what's going on in your city. She rounded out those comments by naming trans rights as the top issue she wants to see in voters' minds this year, saying that they cannot have cis people making decisions for trans people, period. So after rereading her full comment on TikTok, she goes on to explain in the TikTok she believes it's important for me to question authority and question world leaders and question myself, question my algorithm. She continued, question if some people that tweeted something about something else is even true. It's important to question because that's how I think we move forward. So, when I posted earlier on my social media that I think Chappell Roan should stick to singing, a few people were up in arms about it. Oh, well, what is she? She's not entitled to our opinion? Here's the thing. Just because somebody has an opinion doesn't mean it's an argument to somebody else's opinion. I just said the girl should stick to singing. Here's another thing. Chappell Roan should have just left the Guardian interview the way it was. I don't even think a lot of people caught on the day that it came out. So, for Chappell Roan to constantly pop up to further explain herself, including one instance where she, as somebody that doesn't feel pressured to endorse any party, I remember, came out and said, my family's Republican, I love them, and they love me. Cool for you. Why go through all of this when nobody even asked? And then on top of that, it's you got to read the room. You know, most of what she said in her statements, we've all been doing. Questioning the government, questioning political officials, walking the mileage in protests for several matters that have been exercised and played out in front of us. While I do support a couple of her statements, you know, some of this stuff is kind of empowering for people. We've been saying that already. When I came across TikTok, the first thing I said was, "Oh, this is just word salad." Because if you're going to present a particular voice or a stance that you're not going for either party, all this shit's fucked up, and you bring up, what did she say here? Trans rights is the top issue she wants to see on voters' minds this year. I think that we're already there. We are in a pretty much a dire state at this point. And it's a point where this is what we have. You may not agree with either side, you may not be feeling either side. But we saw how life was the 4 years that the other person was president. And for those of us that have been outside, I want to say since the 80s, those of us that have experienced what life was like when a Democrat was in office, when a Republican was in office, and when 45 was in office. You've got to come with something a little bit more persuasive than these general broad statements. That's great that you're saying this. But what do you propose? While we are less than 45 days. Less than 45 days from the presidential election. And the other thing is, when I posted that Chappell Roan should stick to singing on my social media, people had a lot of heat and static in the comment section. I don't take any of it one way or another. And it hit me. It's like, most of this heat that you have is because this is a very popular artist who scooped up some of the keywords that your demographic wants to be, you know, that makes you part of the equation. But every midterm, you know, it's not just the presidential election that matters. There's a midterm election, and there are other elections where you get almost 4 pages of names of people that are running for a seat in a certain district, what have you. And there's even, I believe, a space for you to write a name. If you're gonna go and do the Chappell Roan thing, what other names do you suggest? Like, we're already questioning, we're already protesting, we already do not trust, well, from what I gather, the government. But for the last 10 years, that's about at least 2 opportunities for a person to run for president. You chose now. And I'm not even tripping off of the fact that you have Republican family members. I have Republican friends, some of which have been part of my life since I was young. I even have some that are either in Trump territory or leaning towards Trump territory. They're not a January 6th attendee. They're not a January 6th supporter. But it's clear that most of them are believe a certain thing. And I know it's kind of, when it comes to voting, where your hands are kind of tied, where it's like, I don't trust anybody that's running. And it's like, if I don't vote, then my vote doesn't matter. Or if I don't vote, it's like I voted for somebody I didn't want that got into office. And look at where we are now. I know the line of thinking. But I feel with Chappell Roan's case, and it's definitely an age thing. I mean, the girl is all of about, 20, 25, 26 years old. Definitely the age of what's happening now. Probably with little to no reverence or acknowledgement of history, of things that have led to this point. And I don't think having such a generalized, glossed over statement is going to hit the mark. What I do think is going to hit the mark, though, is if there are more and more young people bringing these issues in the form of questions to town halls and having no fear of being PC. Like, if this is your moment, you're not here for the cameras, you're not here for likes, you're not here for engagement, and you do what the folks did when they got to sit across from a political constituent, can't remember his name. They got to do the research beforehand. Like, you take it there, and you're consistent with it. And people see you and hear you. And you don't back down. And then when you get those ballots in the mail, or you're standing in line to vote for your representatives, you've done the research beforehand, you've made contact, you've written letters, You show up at their offices, which all of your tax dollars pay for, and you ask the hard questions throughout the entire time. And so for Chappell Roan to continue to pop up, and like I said, try to clarify, which you should have went through your team first. Because if there's one thing that remains constant with celebrities, is when they pop up and they think they're doing damage control, 9 times out of 10 they're making it worse. And I found it interesting that people have more heat for Janet Jackson, who has a history and a legacy of pro-feminist work, pro-black works, artistry, impact, influence, being a social activist. She made one slip up in her almost 5-decade plus career. And there was this whole reveal, allegedly, that her brother Randy, who's her manager, is allegedly a Trumper and was feeding her the information. And this whole thing around this guy that claimed to be part of her team and was fired, a whole mess. Shouldn't more of the education, or just as much education, go to the younger artists? Especially the ones that have a team to prevent these PR disasters. You know, it's smarter to not say something than to say essentially what is a word salad. Got up on TikTok, thought she was clarifying things, didn't really enhance or add anything to the conversation. You're essentially saying the same stuff that we've all been saying. And we've been out here a little bit longer. But we're aware and we're reading the room good enough to realize if we do not want another life-ending, quality of life altering 4 to 8 years, if we do not want further regression, overturnment of key historical judgments that impact society, that put women and children's lives at risk, whether it's by death or being arrested. If we don't want any of those things to continue to occur, in addition to more police brutality and empowerment of the attitudes and ideals that fuel that it's okay. Like, we've unfortunately have to accept that sometimes good enough is the best decision right now. We have to maintain and sustain a level of I'll just say a decent quality of living. Like, we know that the Demi Moore is not the pandemic Moore is not going anywhere. It's just here in every room with us. We understand that not everybody got what we got when the opportunity was presented to all of us to get it. We understand that. But I think we should just go with that. Like all of this energy is a little too late at this point. And while Chappell Roan, at her level of celebrity, at her level of fame, no matter how fast it's occurred, like not even 6 months in, this girl was packing these stadiums. I think one of the takeaways from her flurry of statements is that it's going to drive a lot of people, a lot of the young kids, to not vote at all. While some of them, and this is just my opinion, don't, do what you want. Some of them may not have the emotional maturity to deal with the people that wear the red hats, or the emotional capacity. And they may get caught up in the warmth and the charm of the other side. That's why it's important to be more than just words, and to flesh out your thoughts before you press record on TikTok or record on YouTube channel. While I'm not Chappell Roan, you got to be very, 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 very careful. And this is why you hire a PR team of seasoned folks that have that one job to do all day, to stay politically correct in just that regard. Like the actual work, going to the town halls and all this other stuff, and you gotta get through to the heart of what matters to you, and make sure it comes across in a way to folks, especially those that are campaigning, to inspire action. And I'm talking deeper than, oh, I'm just offended by X, or this bothered me, this has been bothering me lately. I think in order to connect with another person, especially a person of power and influence, you have to add a portion of intimacy to the question or to your testimony when you're speaking with these your constituents and your representatives. And while you may not trust them, you have the internet for a reason. It doesn't always have to be popping up on them at dinner and yelling at them and berating them and throwing half-cocked conspiracy theories at them. You're the reason why, there's a conflict between these two countries over in Europe. You and your family have blood on your hands. And I'm like, that's probably not the way. You know, there have a little bit of a versatility in your approach. That's why I say Chappell Roan should stick to singing. And I wasn't 100% going at her opinion or going against her opinion. It's just, you're not saying anything any different than what we've been saying. As delicate and as critical as times that we have been going through, gosh, for even just the past 15 years, it is very important for a lot of us, not just folks in their 20s, but people in their 30s, people in their 40s. While we still have the energy, I know it's hard sometimes, it is very important that we become more distinctive and clear about what it is we want, and we articulate it in a way that is persuasive, influential, and impactful. You know, I said on Twitter, and I said on the podcast this week, the I Refuse podcast, wherever you get your podcasts, that people can never make me hate Janet Jackson. First of all, when it comes to artists that are in these interviews, whether it's a Janet Jackson or a Chappell Roan or a Taylor Swift or, you know, any artist, right? And given the journalist responsibility to ask questions reflected in the Times, when it comes to like political stuff, you gotta be very careful. For those of us that are out here, myself included, while I understand that for most of your life, or even if you just got into this thing, your job is to make music and tour. You may not watch TV. You just gotta be a little more careful with your words. Especially when it comes to critical, sensitive subjects such as race, religion, sex, gender. And given that this is not your first interview, you also have to be aware that some of the questions can be trick questions. There to trip you up, there to trap you, there to serve as clickbait. And then a lot of us come in, click it, and we have what we have. Somebody should have stopped Chappell Roan before getting on TikTok, but the girl can't help it. She can't help it because, again, this is my opinion, people her age, give or take 5 or 10 years, the first thing they do is run a social media. Throw us in a group chat and just go on this stream of consciousness rant. Me, I would have been like, look, I said what I said. Because here's the thing, the moment you respond to backlash, you lose respect and credibility. The moment you apologize, and that was another point I made on Monday's episode, you know, again, you lose credibility and a little bit of respect. Because not only is truth and transparency and honesty important, but also a sense of conviction. You shouldn't mistake or regret what you stand in and what you believe. I'm not tripping over Chappell Roan. A lot of what she said is nothing new or groundbreaking. Girl, we've long not trusted those people. And there's a lot of things in the history of this country that is being pulled out. And there's a larger system at play, regardless of who's in office, that should be brought to your attention. And while I applaud her for empowering to the best of her ability certain demographics of folks, the other half of that is putting foot to pavement, walking down to those offices, having those questions, writing to stuff that they've been saying since the days of Dare. And I just dated myself. So it's not to sound cliche, but knowing is half the battle. What are you going to do? What are you going to do? If you are not ready to have the conversation, or you are not able to stand a little heat over things that you believed in or you stand by, which, in my opinion, were not inflammatory, TikTok is the last place you should go for a response. Or Twitter. We've been saying this for months. Same stuff we've been saying to Cardi about stop responding to every goddamn thing. I'm going to say to Chappell Roan, stop responding to every goddamn thing. Wise Cap, the attention span of your fan base is about this short, which is probably how close I am to stripping if the price of outside continues to go up. But I'll just chuck that up to ignorance. Now, if the girl at 25, 26 years of age does not know, she doesn't know. But I will say some things should have stayed in draft. Should have stayed in the drafts. You should have continued on your tour or whatever show you're doing right now. As a new artist, you were put on the main stage of the VMAs. while a lot of other artists who have been in the game 10 plus years can't even make it on a stage outside. You're doing sold out shows. You haven't responded to the opinion that you are an industry mole or a plant, sorry, an industry plant. Because people are like, how is it that she's having all these sold out shows off of just one album? Like, she's everywhere. And her music is not indistinguishable from other girls like Olivia Rodrigo and yada 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 and this and that. This is what the people say. I like the album. And Good Luck Babe is cute. You know, I give some of the younger girlies a chance. Chappell Roan, Olivia Rodrigo, Sabrina Carpenter, Sabrina Claudio, Kiana Lede, FKA Twigs. Who else is out here? I give the girlies a chance. And y'all are doing it big. But I'm just saying, like, you're doing a lot in your first major year. You're doing a lot. And I've often said that if it doesn't apply, let it fly. Nobody's asking you who you endorse. I, Mr. Fox, the I Refuse podcast, don't give a shit. And what you have to say, a lot of us have been saying already. So what's next? So that's all I got. Ain't got no more. You know, Chappell Roan, continue to make your music. I was just kind of hoping, with being a new artist, that you wouldn't start out being a mess. And it's not like an entertaining mess. It's like we've been here, done that. We've heard this before. It's very much giving, I want to get in front of the class and say some shit for attention. And I get that a lot of people would be sensitive to me having the same energy that y'all give black artists or black athletes when they voice their opinions, because it's uncomfortable for you. Mr. Fox, personally, I don't look to celebrities for political endorsement. I already know who I'm going to vote for. And the people I've voted for since I turned 18 have never steered me wrong. People I voted for have been proactive, have never let the kind of thing like, you know, a whole life-threatening situation slip into the country. Not even 6 months after they had knowledge that it existed. You know, the people I voted for may have probably rubbed people the wrong way. But I understand, like, when you are popular, when you have positive job performance rates from the people, and everybody loves you, you're going to have some haters. But we're at a point right now where it's like, either do something or don't say anything. If you're going to say something, suggest it. Like, have a fully fleshed out, well-informed case. Some people are like, oh, well, they're both fascists. And I'm like, oh, Lord. Even if you are of the opinion, just say you're not going to vote for them. Like, it's some shit you don't want to put out there. And just because I have the opinion that Chappell Roan, like I said, should stick to singing, does not mean the same thing as her opinion doesn't matter. It's like, what's the clear opinion? You get on the mic, you turn on the record button to tell us you're not going to endorse either person, which nobody asked, and you're saying the same shit we've all been saying. We all have issues with the government. And the latter part of your statement or your response, I think a lot of people are already on that boat. And I'm asking, what are y'all going to do now? What's next? Are you going to suggest more representatives that you know reflect or are going to speak for you or have your interests at heart? Or is it just a case of having a person that is from your demographic in the seat? Are you having conversations with them? Are you picking their brains? Are you going to their town halls? Are you suggesting that a town hall take place? Are you doing all those things? You see what I'm doing in this video? Like, and if it's something that you're not informed about or you don't understand, like if there's some causes or some interests or a lot of them that you don't understand, or people that look like me that you don't understand, let's come together. Not everybody out here is looking for an argument. Not everybody out here is looking for a disagreement. I just simply said the girl should stick to singing. And I still stand by that. This is Mr. Fox of the I Refuse podcast. You can call me whatever you want. But at the end of the day, it's my opinion. And I know that I've made several cases in this video to help others. Not simply getting on social media or doing a 5-minute TikTok of word salad for what? What do you suggest? What are the next steps? What are the list of names of people that you would like to run for office that speak to your interests? Who have you sat down with recently that's in the game of politics that can speak for you? You know, basic shit that they've been telling us through all those advertisements and campaigns over the years, since before Rock the Vote, like for years. What? That's all. It's Mr. Fox I Refuse podcast. I stand by what I said. I'm not hating on Chappell Roan. I'm not hating on Janet Jackson. This video speaks to a larger group of people who just get up here to say a bunch of nothing. What are you doing now? What are you going to do next? What do you suggest? A list of names of people that, like I said, We are less than 45 days away from the presidential election. You know, we're standing in long lines. We should have had this conversation 5 years ago. Hell, long before that. But every year we have word salad. Mr. Fox, the Refuse podcast. I'm sorry, not sorry. Check out the Refuse podcast. Season 6 is currently live. We're back. The Refuse podcast, wherever you get your podcasts. Usual Suspects podcast. Refuse podcast After Dark. Of course, this lovely here YouTube channel, where we'll be returning back to weekly content on the YouTube page. Because like I say, it's 0 days without nonsense. While you may not agree with my opinion, and I may not agree with yours, whatever it may be, whoever you may be, I'm still entitled to my opinion, as you are yours. Everything does not have to be an argument. Everything does not have to result in a tantrum. It's not about getting one person's way or another person's way. It's about reading the room, you know? Getting the information, and if you can help it, a distinctive, informed opinion. Peace out. Fendi, like the bag. This is the I Refuse.